it's not everything that happens is ideal, broadly alluding to world events, but I think Northwestern is doing a great job of kind of making it through everything, and so I'm really, really happy with this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing pretty well as well. Obviously, I also had my family here on family weekend, as did a bunch of other Northwestern students, which was really fun to see. In between that, just working on homework. The grind never stops, never completely abates or comes to a halt, but we've got a lot on this show docket today. Really looking forward to it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I had a very meditative week. We got the classes canceled midweek. That was the somber vibe on campus. But overall, I didn't really have parents coming down this weekend. I didn't have much work this weekend for the first time all quarter. So it's been a nice recharging.
Yeah, I'd say vibes early in the week, definitely poor. But it was a good time to have Parents Weekend. My parents did come. That was fun. We went to the Art Institute yesterday.
Classic.
And then after that, watched the Indiana football game. So I have lots to say about that because my dad is a diehard Indiana Hoosier.
I had no idea. That'll be fun.
I am a diehard Indiana Hoosiers fan behind Northwestern. So I've got a lot to say about that one and Indiana in the Sig 10.
Wow, I did not know that there was a Perri, Indiana connection. So that'll be a fun segment. Definitely stay tuned for that. But we're going to start with some Northwestern stuff here, as we do on Sports Voice. And unfortunately, the big news of the week was unfortunate for Northwestern, and that was a big loss in field hockey, their first of the season, to Michigan. It was a 1-0 game. And just, I want to hear your thoughts on this one. Obviously stings to, going undefeated all season, and you end up falling in the Big Ten final. But Northwestern will have another chance in about 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, to redeem themselves in the national stage. So if you're Tracy Fuchs, what do you say to the team? How do you, I know you guys were having this conversation on Her Take, but what is kind of the conversation? I want to kind of get back to that and start, I guess, where you guys left off in the last show.
Yeah, so you heard me talk about this on Her Take. Gabe did as well. I know a lot of the girls on this team, and I know that this loss is just fuel for the fire. And honestly, if I'm Tracy Fuchs, I know that she would probably say that they were getting a little too complacent in that number one spot and that every loss is a learning opportunity and that they've maybe had, there's never enough Big Ten championships to go around, but they've had that the last couple of years, and that if this loss needed to happen to propel them to a championship, then maybe it was worth the trouble. So I think it's just, what can we learn from this? What weaknesses were exposed that hadn't been exposed all season? And how do we now take this momentum we've had all season, renew it, add some fuel, and go into the postseason with that energy all the way to the championship?
Yeah, definitely a learning opportunity for the Cats, as Perri was alluding to. I was less hopeful for their hopes for the Her Take listeners than Perri was. Overall, I think I always think back to this Jay Wright quote whenever I see this late season doubt of him saying when Villanova was the 2 seed, they went all the way. So when they doubted us, it made the guys put in double the amount of work, and I feel like that could be true for Tracy Fuchs and company as well.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you had said. You really hit the nail on the head there. I feel like obviously it's not ideal to have a loss come in the final game of the season before the NCAA tournament in the Big Ten championship. But by the same token, it is better than a loss coming from an undefeated and potentially complacent team in the NCAA tournament as the Cats seek to win it all. There is certainly a different vibe when you're undefeated versus when you get that first loss and get that wake-up call. And I think for the Cats, obviously they would have liked to complete the perfect season, really would have liked to take this already historic Northwestern team to new heights. But by the same token, the potential is limitless for this team, regardless of what happened in the game against Michigan. And if it makes everyone work just a little bit harder to get that national title done, it will be worth it in the end.
It's, you've got to lose at some point. I know, Sammy, you mentioned the efficiency differential. This is still a 2-point difference, or a 2 percentage point difference. 19% shot percentage versus 18%. Or basically one point if you're rounding up for Northwestern. So these are tiny differences between two incredible teams. I think I agree about adding fuel to the fire. Long term, especially for a team that is trying to come back after losing a national championship last year, this is exactly the kind of momentum that you can get going into the postseason that can be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the excitement should still be there, and honestly, there should be more excitement for the national championships, which I believe are happening in Ann Arbor. Am I mistaken on that? Or I believe the national championships are happening in Ann Arbor, which could be interesting for Michigan having that home field advantage. But obviously, like everyone has said, really tough. But I think Perri kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, fuel to the fire for Northwestern. And so field hockey, a team that has been doing really well, hit kind of a rough patch there with that loss. Now shifting gears to football, a team that got a win in their last game, a bye this weekend, so no stress for Northwestern football fans. But they're going to be playing a game at the Friendly Confines on Saturday, which, first off, Gabe and Perri and Claire, did you guys go last year to the Iowa game?
I did not, no. Well, I saw $75 and I said,
yeah, which is fair.
I was actually abroad, and my
Right,
freshman
yeah.
year, when I had the opportunity to go to Wrigley, I had a nasty flu the
Oh.
night before, and I could not go, so that was tragic. So I've never been, and I'm calling it for WNUR,
All
so I'm
right.
very excited about that.
Yeah. I was there last year at the Iowa game, and like I'm a Cubs fan, and I know you're a Cubs fan also, but like it was just really special. Like, I don't know, like just being there, seeing it as like a completely different thing. I mean, it was a football. I mean, the Bears played there for like longer than they've been at Soldier Field almost. Maybe not at this point, but like they played there, for years and years. So it was kind of just very interesting seeing it in that layout. So despite the team that is on Northwestern's schedule, I'm very excited for this game. But it is Ohio State, and back on for those of you who have been listening since the 7 to 7:30 block, someone on Tesler's Takes, or no, I guess they're calling it
Bantering about
Bantering
ball.
About Ball now, yes. Someone on Leo's show was saying how this is a game that could have technically playoff implications. If
Not for
Northwestern,
us.
if Northwestern
One
somehow, some way, pulls off the upset against OSU, those are playoff implications. So
That
I'll
would
turn
put the
it.
Indiana Hoosiers in a real good spot.
I'll turn it over to you guys. Like, what real chance does Northwestern have of competing in this game? Ohio State just destroyed Purdue this weekend, a team that was right in it with Northwestern, right? Is there any chance of this game being good for Northwestern?
Maybe about the same chance as Ben Bryant has of suddenly showing up at the stadium, getting through all the security, and running out onto the field mid-game to take over once again as quarterback for the Cats. I just think there's almost no shot. Ohio State could have had a similar type of trap game last week against Purdue, or yesterday against Purdue. They did not. They won 45-0. This Northwestern team is very, very similar in terms of Purdue, when compared to the Purdue Boilermakers this year in terms of how they can perform on a football field. And while this hasn't been all darkness for the Cats, this hasn't been a season that was worse than, for example, the 1-11 campaign a couple years ago. But at the same time, there's just not in anywhere close to the same universe as Ohio State. And I think at Wrigley, this Cats team is suddenly going to be playing, obviously, close to home, but in a bigger environment. Ohio State fans are going to overrun. It really will be an away game. On the bright side, though, student tickets aren't $75. It's $50 this year, so there's a bit of a discount. But I don't know if that's...
I do want to interject real quick, because in that 1-11 season, I think it was 1-11, they did play Ohio State. That was the last time they matched up, and it was a close game. I think it was like 21-7. Northwestern kind of kept with them, so just saying, you never know. Never know.
Yeah, Sammy, I try really hard to be an optimist. I like to consider myself a glass half full guy, but I'm struggling here. I was going to kind of bring up the same thing, like, it's a home game, but then you even look at Northwestern Medicine Field and you're seeing Wisconsin fans outnumber the Purple 2-1. So yeah, like, I don't have that much faith. Maybe they can get a touchdown. That'd be nice, but I don't see it being anywhere near where it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I could see maybe, because Northwestern special teams, I think, has been pretty decent for them. Maybe kind of similarly to Indiana's big play yesterday at the end of the game, that special teams punt return that set up their last field goal to put them up 5, which didn't really end up mattering, but was a big morale booster. Maybe they get something on special teams, puts them in a good position. They get a Luke Akers field goal. Is he back yet? The
I think it's still Akers.
It's Akers.
Yeah,
So I don't see this going well at all. I think that the 31.5 point opening spread from Vegas is probably a little generous, and we'll see how it goes. But it's about the experience.
Yeah, well,
That's my positive thinking.
Yeah, it is about. I mean, now will you
I
guys
said they might get a touchdown.
Will you guys? Perri will be on the call. Listen, W89.3 on the air, I believe. Definitely listen to that. But will you? The rest of you guys? I'll be there. Will you guys be there?
I will be. Oh, go ahead.
Will you be there? You go first, Colin.
I will be there. I'll be taking the train. I'm excited.
Yes.
I got my tickets a couple months ago.
Bright
so
and early.
Was
11 a.m.
hoping for maybe a slightly closer game than what we can expect now. But by the same token, obviously, there's no expectation of beating Ohio State at this point for really at any point in the season for Northwestern. So beating her, I'll be excited.
I will unfortunately be occupied with other important things. But I'll be rooting for them from elsewhere.
I won't beat that game. I think there's going to be plenty of early games in Northwestern's football's future that I can go to. This game is maybe not the morale booster that I want in the middle of the quarter, and if I don't, I'm going to know. But, I mean, look, could this have playoff implications if Northwestern wins? Yes. Could it have NFL playoff implications if the Bears win throughout the remainder of their schedule? Yes.
Let's not. I'm suffering enough as it is.
Oh, yeah,
Still
how
with
the
my
Pats
Bears
game
shirt
goes.
on. Yeah, we may want to skip talking about that one today.
Yeah,
but,
so, the Tesslers takes, or the band, it's,
Bantering about ball,
Bantering about ball, which I think is kind of the Crypto.com arena of radio show names, because in my heart it's still Staples Center. But moving on to maybe some greener pastures for Northwestern sports fans, let's talk about men's basketball. This team lost to Dayton 71-66 this past week. Not totally what Cats fans were hoping for, although, as was mentioned earlier tonight in Tesler's Takes, that's the right one, right?
Bantering about ball.
Bantering about ball. They were without Brooks Barnheiser, but, looking at some of the important sort of movements that we're seeing in this game, Nick Martinelli continues to shine, 12 of 16, perfect from beyond the arc, 3 of 3, 14 rebounds, really just having a stellar, even historic start to the season. But, maybe we have some concerns with consistency from the rest of this team, whether that's KJ Wyndham or Ty Berry. So, what do we have to say about this team finding its new identity this year, and how do we think that will go throughout conference play?
I thought that their defense looked phenomenal at the beginning. That point when they were up, I believe it was 29-14, and then it ended up tied very soon after that. That was when things started to slip. For the Wildcats, I will say that the shooting, particularly from Ty Berry, has been a little bit concerning. Before his injury last year, he was shooting over 40% from three.
One of the best
in the country. And the fact that he has 0 points. Did he score? How much did he score in the?
Yeah, he had no points.
0
0 for
points
5 from the field
in 2 games, especially with Brooks Barnheiser on the bench when he's supposed to be the 5th-year veteran leader of this team. That's, I think, concerning, definitely. Angelo Chervino, though, bright spot.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm gonna imagine Chris Collins is gonna have him in the rotation more. There's a lot of potential. I think the defense, again, like Chris Collins loved to say, is what they're gonna hang their hat on. I think that they're going to have a lot of points a lot of games where if they keep their opponent under 70 points, they'll win. And if they don't, they'll lose, which is similar to how they've been kind of in past years with this Collins atmosphere.
Yeah, it feels like Northwestern basketball keeps recycling the same narratives every year. You have like Nick Martinelli's the next Brooks Barnheiser of last year, some shifty combo guard who's stepping up and taking bigger minutes and adopting a bigger role. Feels like Collins is trying to recycle these players. I don't think the Dayton loss is as bad as people are making it out to be, frankly. As someone who's watched A-10 basketball for the majority of my life, I've seen Dayton beat UMass far too many times. Anthony Grant, they lost to Ron Holmes, but it's a fantastic team that I think, obviously blowing the lead isn't ideal, but it's a team that you're okay with losing to. it's just a matter of, I feel like time and time again, too, you see streaky players with Northwestern. You see Ty Berry go on a run where he's going to get, like 7 or 8 threes in a game and then have a 20 points 3 games in a row and then be ice cold for the next week. So it's really about who's getting hot at the right times. In a month we might be talking about, Jalen Leach and not Nick Martinelli as this really hot player who's been carrying the team. Good old Fairfield boy.
Yeah, I'm relatively optimistic overall, I'd say, about this. Obviously, I'll share the sentiment about Nick Martinelli, who's just been excellent and looked like he's really flying all over the court. And I am optimistic that Ty Berry and Matthew Nicholson, who are supposed to be really 2 leaders on this team, will lead and will get better because Chris Collins is able to coach these players up to the best of their abilities. I am concerned for a player like Leach, who is coming off, obviously this was last year, but a tough performance in his conference tournament in a couple games, now a tough 2-game stretch to start the season. It's way, way too early to lose hope. We have, like Gabe mentioned, he could be the guy where in another month we're like, oh, Jalen Leach has become one of the primary scoring options for Northwestern. But I think it would be really, really nice if he could step it up in terms of depth scoring options for this team, because it can't just be Martinelli, and even when Barnheiser comes back, it can't just be those two. This Northwestern team in the past few years has been prone to droughts on the offensive end. Now, on the other hand, like Gabe mentioned as well, A-10 basketball cannot be underestimated. This was a 13,000-seat arena on the road for Northwestern. The Dayton fans were getting on their feet, getting into it, and Enoch Cheeks and Nate Santos both had excellent second halves, and Enoch Cheeks had 6 steals in that game, which can partially be blamed on the Cats, but honestly, they weren't even that bad taking care of the ball. He was just playing excellently on the defensive end. So Dayton's not a bad team. They'll probably get a couple more wins like this in the season. So while it would have been nice to be 2-0, head back to a Tuesday game against UIC, it's not the worst thing in the world. There are things to build on still.
Absolutely. They're still going to be a good team. I think people are writing them off because Holmes is not there, but Holmes was not the only guy last year. They have a lot of other guys. Cheeks, one of them. I really like watching him play. With Northwestern, I'm going to kind of go off what you guys said. I just think it's going to be a very streaky team this year, and it's going to make it really hard to judge where they're going to be in this conference, because I think if everything's hitting, right? If Ty Berry's shooting like he did last year, if Martinelli's playing like he did, if Leach maybe plays like he did last year before the conference tournament was, you maybe get Wyndham in there, right? Like if all these things fall into place, they can be like a top 5 team in the Big Ten. They can compete. Sure. But are those things going to fall in place? And I think it's just going to be any night you're going to have maybe some guys performing really well, maybe Martinelli performing, but then other guys struggling a lot. Barry against Dayton, right? So that is why defense, like you guys were saying, has to be the consistent. Offense, you don't know what you're going to get. You really don't. Because last year, at least, you could count on Boo Boo. And when Perri was healthy, for most of the time he was healthy, at least you count on him. This year, you don't have that. So the defense is going to have to be the reliable. And I think any good Chris Collins team, it has been. I think the second half defense was a little concerning against Dayton. But, like you're saying, Dayton, that's a tough away crowd. 13,000 is bigger than Welsh. I remember when Dayton played here last year, they traveled a ton. They made a lot of noise. So, a tough environment, a good team, not a terrible loss. Hope Northwestern can get back on track Tuesday against UIC. Should be able to do so. And before we move to Pick'em, let's talk some women's basketball. A really rough loss today to Lehigh. They almost lost by 20 in the non-conference. They're now 1-2 or 0-2 to start the season. They did win the exhibition game. This was a team that was supposed to be better than last year's team, and there weren't a lot of ways to go from last year other than up. Are we concerned with these first 2 games? Like, is it like, like this is bad, or are they just kind of figuring things out in the early going? What do we think?
Heck yeah, I'm concerned. They lost to Illinois State, and then they got blown out by Lehigh. This is very worrisome. Again, you have good performances. You have Kyla Jones coming in and dropping 28 points and 22-point double-doubles and from players on this team. But at the end of the day, they're not getting wins in what I think, Illinois State is a fine team, but many would consider that a bye game going in, thinking you're going in and trying to ramp up some early season wins and boost your record. I've been really disappointed so far.
Me too.
I have been disappointed. I will say today, Lehigh shot 71% from 3 in the first half. I engineered this game and I was listening to it. And every single time in the first half, Patrick said Lehigh for 3, it went in. And it's tough. It's tough when that happens. 2 things to take away from that. One, I mentioned it earlier. Maybe I mentioned it on her take, but I think I mentioned it earlier. The perimeter defense is a problem. And this team used to be similar to the men's team in that defense was what they took a lot of pride in. And last year that was not the case. They gave up 80 points, over 80 points a game. And I'm worried that will not be the case either this year. And I think part of that does come from coaching and culture in a way that it doesn't come from talent, because they have a lot of athletic guards on this team. And it gets to a point where there are too many turnovers and too many defensive lapses for it to be a talent issue more than a communication issue or a teamwork issue or anything like that. So I think the team has a lot to evaluate. I think there is a lot of potential in players like Kyla Jones, Taylor Williams, Grace Sullivan, the transfers. Taylor Thomas has been really promising as another big in that rotation. I think she's going to be really big. Zamaya Walton, maybe not off to the start that people wanted her to be off to, but again, it's just her first year.
Getting her legit minutes as a freshman. I mean,
legit minutes. Yeah. She had 2 shots in the Illinois State game, 12 seconds on the clock, then 6 seconds on the clock, down 2.
Yeah.
The ball ends up in her hands 2 times, both of them wide open. She needed to take the shots. She took the shots. They didn't fall. Whatever.
They're trusting her.
It's
though.
her first game.
Yeah.
The fact that she's out there in those moments, I think, is promising for the program. But I will say, just by the time this season ends, I believe it's the last year in Joe McEwen's contract, I think that they might be looking to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, it might be the case. I think what is good to take away is that there have been bright spots, and that while we've seen some pretty, not great stuff through these first 2 games, I don't think it can get much worse than this for the Cats, because I don't think very many players, especially off the bench, have gotten going. Perri, you mentioned Zamaya Walton. That's somebody who has yet to make a 3-pointer, 0 for 7 to start the season, but she was a prolific scorer in high school. There is no way that is staying the same, especially once she gets confidence from beyond the arc. It's a tough situation to miss 2 potential shots in the closing seconds late in the season opening game of your college career, but she's absolutely going to be able to bounce back down the stretch. There's too much talent there for that to not happen. And there are multiple other players on this Wildcat bench, including Taylor Thomas, who can be productive, as well as potential shooters. So this team, while they may struggle with defense, there's some upside in terms of them being potentially a decent 3-point shooting team in some games, and that'll help keep them in some close matchups, potentially even in Big Ten play.
And to Perry's point, I do think it's likely that in terms of coaching, this team ends up moving in a different direction sometime soon. And so I think to me, kind of the most important thing is that they are nurturing the talent that they do have, especially younger players on the team for future years. And so, as positive as coaching can be throughout the remainder of the year, it's going to be a good thing for the girls on this team to face consistent challenges and need to struggle a little bit this year. I don't think, based on this game, that this is going to be a very pretty season unless they kind of magically turn things around in a way that can be very useful in years to come. So we'll see what comes from this team. Sammy, I think it's time for my favorite part of the episode, which is pick 'em.
It is time for pick 'em. I know Perri, as a former SportsVoice host, knows all about pick 'em. Cal knows all about pick 'em. You've been on SportsVoice with us too. I don't know if you have.
No, I did it with Raga last year.
Yeah, all right. Well,
not with you guys.
You know all about pick 'em.
Hey.
There you go. So for those of you listening at home who don't know about pick 'em, this is where we have 3 different questions or prompts, and we're just looking for fun answers. We're looking for something that's going to catch our eye, and if you catch our eye, you get a point. We're going to decide everything at the end. We have 3 fun ones today, and Claire changed the name on this, and I think I'm glad she did, because class, I think it was class, like, all of the classes, but it's now class warfare, because we don't mess around with SportsVoice.
I can't believe you called me junior.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Oh, wait, call you a junior? Yeah, that's on me. I'll put the Medill on that one. No, yeah, I was thinking in last year's terms. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. Anyways, class warfare, we have a senior, a sophomore, a freshman. So you got everything represented, no juniors. So what is the best thing about being in your respective class? Anyone can start.
I think being a freshman here is that everything's so new, yet so carefree at the same time. Because obviously, there are things you can pursue with internships and stuff like that in classes, but especially for the first quarter, while it's an adjustment in terms of work, there are very much just endless opportunities in terms of what you can pursue. Both, extracurricular activities at school, different classes. It's just like a wide open landscape of things you haven't even experienced before. Yet it's not that type of time where you got to be concerned about getting a job, what you're going to do after college. This is really the time to start enjoying oneself in college, into whatever extent or whatever way that might look like. And so I think objectively, like, you just can't argue with the fact that freshmen in general, I won't speak for every single freshman on campus, but that most freshmen have a considerable amount of fun once they arrive, particularly here at Northwestern. Just the idea that everything's new yet carefree, that combination, unbeatable in my opinion.
Okay, hear me out. Sophomore year is the last year before real life begins. Junior, you're required to live on campus your first 2 years in Northwestern. I don't know about you guys, but next year, I'm moving off campus. I am probably moving off the meal plan. I'm going to have to start cooking for myself. I'm going to have to take care of, a house. There is so many new things that are coming, and I feel like sophomore year is the last part of your life where you can really be carefree, where you don't have to worry about all these responsibilities weighing on you. For the Medill students, the JRs of the world, sophomore year, you can finally live the last year of your carefree lifestyle.
That's deep.
Wow. I think that senior year is pretty self-explanatory. It's like when you're in high school and you're a senior and you're like, man, I'm the king of the crop. I have earned my way to this position. But what's funny about senior year is there's this really cool feeling when you look around campus, for example, being in this position as sports director and coming back on this show that I hosted my entire sophomore year and seeing how formative that was and putting me on the path that I'm going to be at now. It's really cool being a senior and realizing that it's true what people say about how much experience, just life experience you have during college, and looking back at how different of a person I was as a freshman versus where I am now, and all of these ways that I feel like I can give back to my community and give back to people that are freshmen and sophomores and coming up and interested in the same things I'm interested in. And that's something that I love because I have always been big on the mentorship front. But it's also just cool on a personal level, looking at your own accomplishments, looking at your friends and your community and the people and the classes you've taken and everything that you've done. Because I love Northwestern. I've loved all my time here. I'm going to cherish the last couple months here, which is crazy to say. So that's why senior year is the best.
We've never had this before where we've had three different classes here. So, it is very cool to, see the, variety of perspective and, where everyone's at, right? Because, I don't know about you, Claire, but, with, Calvin, I feel, last year, that was totally where I was. And the Gabe, facts. Facts. Next year, we have to, be real people. That's scary. And then Perri, I haven't, also that rhymed. Sorry. But, yeah, next year, or senior year, we haven't gotten there yet, but, I can imagine, I don't know. We'll say our winners at the end, but 3 really good answers from everybody. Next question.
Yeah, 3 really great answers. Moving on to our next question, we said earlier in the episode, it is the end of family weekend right now. Such a fun time. Getting to see the parents, maybe some siblings coming into Evanston. But, in the spirit, in that family spirit and, maybe leading into the holiday season, people are thinking about their families. But right now, we're thinking about not our families. We're thinking about other families in sports, perhaps more of a Nepo baby nature here. But we want each of you to pick a family duo, whether that's father, son, brothers, sisters, etc., in sports that you think is iconic. If you say Bronny and LeBron, it's kind of over for you, so maybe pick something other than that. But we'll start with Perri this time.
So I had 2 different answers. I was debating for this one, but the one I'm going to go with, given that we are at Northwestern right now, is Veronica and Kayla Burton. So Veronica Burton was a Northwestern basketball legend who's now in the WNBA, was playing with the Dallas Wings, but then got waived crazy and picked up by the Connecticut Sun, where she had a great season. Kayla Burton played basketball at Lehigh, very relevant today for the Northwestern women's basketball
unfortunately.
front, and is now a sports reporter working for NBC Sports Boston, covering the Celtics. She's also been a sideline reporter for ESPN. Both of them are just badass women, and they support each other all the time. In Kayla Burton's Twitter bio, it says all the stuff she's accomplished and, quote, a lot of at Veronica Burton content. I love the way they hug each other up. I follow Veronica on Instagram, and she's always touting Kayla's accomplishments. So I think it's really cool to see two former athletes, one succeeding in the WNBA and now one succeeding in sports journalism career, and supporting each other the entire way.
I'm taking the Griffies. I'm taking Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. I think it's very rare that you get a father-son duo that are both age, playing the same game. And I think just the vibe that they got was so fun out there, where, you see Junior cutting off his dad in the outfit for ball, getting grounded in the middle of games. You took the car keys from him. It was like a whole thing. It just makes you feel like a kid at heart, which is really fun and wholesome to see in the world of sports.
I like both those picks. I'm actually going to go with Jim and John Harbaugh for a couple reasons. Not only because of the Harbaugh from many years ago, where that's really, if you want to talk about something rare, there's something that's never ever happened and probably never will again. That's really just as rare as you can get. But even then, I think we saw an example of this really about a month ago. I think it was Jim Harbaugh at his presser. John Harbaugh at his presser, Jim Harbaugh on the sideline, got pulled out of the game with what we found out was a heart condition that he had, a minor heart condition, and John Harbaugh immediately left his press conference, went to check on him, see if he was okay. That's really the ultimate bond that you can see. That's really never shifted between those two, even as they've both taken very different paths in terms of what teams they've been with throughout their lives. So both excellent at their jobs, both care for each other and supportive for each other in the deepest of ways, and in terms of just the amount of the really uniqueness of that duo and the fact that they're both once again back in the NFL, that's going to be my pick.
Three really good ones. Now to our last one. I couldn't think of a creative name, so I just put numbers because that's what it is. Obviously, lots of iconic numbers in sports, right? When we talk about jerseys. So everyone pick a number and give us some athletes that wore that number and try and convince us that it is the most iconic jersey number.
It is easily 42, and I will tell you why. Jackie Robinson, first of all, only retired number in all of baseball. And on top of that, you have the likes of Mariano Rivera. You can go into basketball. You have the likes of Nate Thurmond, James Worthy. But in baseball, once a year, on the weekend, 1 weekend a year, you have Jackie Robinson Day. And on that day, everyone across the entire league wears number 42. So by proxy, over the past 20-plus years, anyone who has ever played baseball has worn this number at least once. That's Mike Trout, that's Barry Bonds, that's Ken Griffey Jr. All the great players of the past 25 years have worn this number.
That's a great call. I'm going to go with number 13. So first of all, the number itself is historically, superstitiously, this unlucky number. And that's why I think it's so fun when athletes choose to embrace the number 13 and say, you can't tell me I'm unlucky. I'm going to take that throw back in your face and I'm going to make you unlucky. Some famous number 13s, Alex Morgan, legendary number 13, Alex Rodriguez, Odell Beckham Jr., Wilt Chamberlain, Mike Evans. Just talk about consistency. That's Mike Evans right there. Lindsey Whalen in the WNBA and Chine Ogwumike, to name a few. That was going to be my other pick, was going to be Chine and Nneka, the Ogwumike sisters, because they're also awesome, for question number 2. But I think the number 13, it's just standalone. You don't need to list who wears 13 because the number, there are elevators. I don't know if you guys I don't think are from cities like I'm from cities. In most apartment buildings in New York City that are over 13 floors, there is no number 13. The elevator will go from 12 to 14, and there is no 13th floor. Well, technically there is. They just don't call it that. Because historically people were so afraid of the number 13.
I always notice that in New York hotels. It's 12, 14.
12, 14. There is no 13. And so I think it's cool to take the number 13, Friday the 13th, for example. 13 needs no introduction.
Here, another fun fact about 13, for my data journalism class, we were looking at Chicago wards. there is like police wards or whatever, or districts. There is no 13th. They skipped it, so unlucky. But for some, it is lucky. So last one, Calvin. There are lots of good options. There's lots of great ones.
Lots of good options, and I think, you all both talked about numbers that are known when you just say them. I think there's none better than that, or very few that can even rival that when compared to number 23. And of course, you got Michael Jordan, the iconic number 23, and that number is so good that even LeBron James couldn't stay away from it from his whole career because he already went back to it, and now wears number 23 once again. You got the two greatest basketball players of all time wearing the same number. That sport's on lockdown, especially when you consider guys like Jimmy Butler, Anthony Davis also had that number at times. Even then, beyond that, if you want to look into football, you got guys like Frank Gore. It's really traverses across different sports, but at the end of the day, I think 23, with a basketball crowd and beyond, is just a number that is so instantly recognizable. And the fact that a great all-time player like LeBron James gravitated back towards the number in the twilight of his career, I think demonstrates the power of it and the influence that it has.
All right, we have something really rare that almost never happens on SportsVoice. I feel like normally we have someone who just is really, really good at pick'em on a particular day.
Or really, really bad.
Or really, really bad. And so we have just kind of one decisive winner of pick'em, but we're actually all tied up after pick'em, which is exciting because it means for those of you listening, you gotta stick around for draft day to find out the overall winner of the night. But working our way backward, numbers, I am going to have to go with Gabe. The Jackie Robinson answer, obviously, growing up as a Bruins fan, watching the team play at Jackie Robinson Stadium, a lot of iconic moments for me personally, but I think you do a great job of explaining how, this number has such a unique status in its sport that no number in any other sport can totally achieve, and so that's super compelling. Sammy and I thought that for all of the family, Calvin, your answer was great about the Harbaugh brothers. Sort of fun, sort of saga within the family, and definitely a lot of pride for the two brothers. And Perri, I gotta say, I think we almost picked up a little bit of this thing.
Yeah, that was really good.
I think, Sammy wrote down, we had a junior, a sophomore, and a freshman in
Literally, I was thinking of last year's trip. I do apologize.
I took that personally.
I think the reason why we did that is because we really wanted to be a junior.
I know, for real.
Be sticking around.
Who's tearing up now?
And so, yeah, but that, that puts us all even in pick'em, so we're gonna sort of preserve the tension of the competition, and we're gonna take a break from games and do some national sports talk. But that really should be in the back of their minds that everyone's on even footing, and so this is anyone's night.
So we're going to go real quick through the NFL, partly because of time and partly because I don't want the talk to get to the Chicago Bears because...
What happened with the Bears? I didn't see anything.
No, I
haven't been in Massachusetts in a while, Sammy. I don't...
Oh, yeah. Here's what I'll say. I don't know if I will be watching the Bears-Packers game next week. I don't know if I can do that to myself. But I do want to go around here. We can start with Kaplan. Just something from today that you thought was notable. Surprising, fun, bad. If you had to talk about the Bears, talk about the Bears. I'll be a little sad, but it's okay. So just something from today's results that are your eye.
Well, I'll talk about my hometown Commanders because I was with my friend who I usually watch the game with, and my parents as well were in town, so we watched together. And a really impressive performance, especially considering the offensive line injury. But man, Johnny Newton, man, he had such a good start to the season. He's gonna be back better than ever. This team culture is different this year, and they're gonna ensure that. But everyone was calling out at the TV on 4th down and 1. Don't jump off sides, because they're going to do a hard count. And what do you know? He jumps off sides, ends the game, doesn't give the Commanders a chance to get the ball back. Now, would they
Very literal rookie mistake.
Very literal rookie mistake.
Yeah.
Would they have won had the Steelers ended up punting it away, pinning the Commanders back deep? Maybe not, but Jaden Daniels has done crazier things in this season alone, even just a couple games ago, Sammy.
What? I have no idea what you could possibly be talking about.
Regardless, the talent, it was there, and there was a lot of hope left in that game. Now, 7-3, not a bad place to be for Washington, but man, it's just a brutal ending to lose by a point. But hey, Russell Wilson and the Steelers and Mike Tomlin having a fantastic year. They are legit. The defensive line, as always, is scary.
Well, Sammy, we're going to take things to the AFC East. No, I'm not going to talk about the Patriots. We're going to talk about the Bills. They keep rolling. More so at the expense of my Colts this week, who have now lost 3 in a row. They usually stick it out until the last week and inevitably don't make it. But I found the Joe Flacco start very interesting. They've been starting Richardson mostly this season. Flacco's back in. Threw for 272 yards, and the 39-year-old man is still hobbling along, and I appreciate his efforts.
All right, I'm going to go with least surprising result of the week is the Jets scoring 6 points.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm on the JK train solely because of Aaron Rodgers.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
Sammy, you took the words out of my mouth. I pray on his downfall daily.
Yes.
And so love to see that. My personal Bengals, oh my God, do I have thoughts about that game. But they should have won. They should have won the first game. They should have won against the Chiefs. And we should be like, not
It's one of the most
4 and
it's
6
one of the
right
tragic how is that
because
team
looking
that bad?
at Trey Hendrickson's season, looking at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase's season, it's just tragic. So I think I need to start a petition to Zach Taylor to stop going for it on 4th down when you have a decently short field goal to kick in the 4th quarter with 9.5 minutes on the clock, approximately. About the Bears, though, just one quick interlude because
Sure.
I am currently working for ESPN Chicago, who's the flagship station of the Bears as well, and
Great.
so on a weekly basis, I make about 20 plus pieces of content directly related to the Bears and everything about them. And I edited a video earlier this week of one of our hosts, Adam Abdallah, saying, anyone, if the Bears are saying that the Patriots were the worst team in the league and anyone who loses to them should fire their coach. So we will see. I also have been on the Matt Eberflus hate train since last season because I hate the way that he talks about his players in press conferences and never takes accountability for his actions. And I didn't think he should have had a job at the beginning of this season, even after he grew out a beard and looked cool on Hard Knocks.
Well, yeah, I think that was a trick. We were like, okay, he has a beard now, he has sunglasses, he's drippy. Like, all right, he's gonna be fine. No, we were tricked. Any rational franchise. I mean, first off, Eberflus would not have been the coach to start this season, like you said.
No.
You don't start a rookie quarterback with a defensive coach that has had questions of holding his locker room, and you can tell. I mean, he has lost the team. And that's the rough thing. I mean, there's a lot of talent. I really think the Bears, talent-wise, are a playoff team, but like, there's a little more to winning football games than talent. On the Bengals now, before we move on to college football, which I do want to get to. So I'm playing one of my fantasy leagues. A friend of WR, Eli Cronenberg. Not the WR one, it's in like a separate league with him. He sent me a screenshot he's playing this week. On Thursday night alone, thanks to the Bengals, he has Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow.
Oh.
And I think he also had Mark Andrews. He had 107.92 points on Thursday night alone to my 4.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, he sent me,
Wait, he is projected to have nearly 180 points this year.
yeah, I don't know how that turned out from that was on Thursday, but I don't know if Eli's listening to this. That's my guy. Can't wait to have him back from DC.
We're gonna check.
But
Noted
yeah,
around the
that
world.
was not ideal for me. He said it's not looking ideal for you. So despite and the Bengals lost that game, which is just unfathomable. That's rough.
Eli so far is at 157 points this week, and Cooper Kupp has not played yet. So
Whoa.
he has a
180
chance
it was not out of the picture at all.
not out of the picture whatsoever. That is absolutely and completely crazy. So I'm excited for him for that. But yes, moving on
CFP.
to college football. I mean, Perri, sort of while you're just sort of in the zone of talking about football, we got to go to you to talk about this Indiana team, which is just like bafflingly good. I think I expected them to be pretty good this year. I don't think anyone expected them to be as good as they are and kind of on par with, teams like Oregon in the conference. But, they haven't really faced the same level of competition. And so, they have that Ohio State game coming up. How are you feeling going into this? Do you think, I think we often talk about in the NBA, you never truly win a game. It's just you either are fraudulent or you prove that another team is fraudulent. And so I'm not sure if that's what's going on here, but, how are you feeling going into this and what do you think Indiana has to prove?
I think that what I feel great about is the Indiana defense because they held Michigan to their fewest total yards since, I believe, 2016. About 206 yards, if I have that right off the top of my head, which was fantastic. The offense struggled yesterday. Some of it, I think, I really did not agree with some of which they saw, especially in the second half. Indiana would continuously get the ball back, run it 3 times in a row, go for negative yards. They had, as of a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter, they had -1 total yards in the second half. That is so unacceptable and
Sounds like
so,
Bears.
so shocking for a team that has been dominating on offense. So, Michigan had Justin Nelson's number, fine. Curtis Rourke threw a couple bad passes. Also, Elijah Surratt, their best receiver, had 2 really awful drops that would have put Indiana in big plus territory on long downs. But at the end of the day, a win is a win. I think coming out of that looking horrible, it's the only up from here for them. I think also the team, they had a lot of penalties. Coach Sig has been big on keeping penalties low and just discipline in general. And I think that they have a lot of discipline as a team. It's part of why they're so successful is playing together. They're really bought in, like opposite of the Bears. They are bought into the team in this mentality. And he really has the locker room on their side. So I think that the Ohio State game is going to be all about the performance of the defense. And then if Curtis Rourke and Elijah Surratt and Justice Ellison, can make those big plays when they need to, and he can come down with those passes.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think this is actually, we've talked about Indiana, I think, now several times on Sports Voice. I think every time I've been on Sports Voice, Indiana has come up, and for good reason.
It's been that good. It's been a storyline.
For good reason, because, I mean, they have been 10-0, and they've been good. I mean, the one thing I'll say is they really need this Ohio State game, because, I think they'll get into the playoff either way, but to imagine them going into the playoff, having played only the teams they have played, and then Purdue at the end of the season, I mean, that is just, that is just textbook situation for a reality check against whoever they ended up facing. I think they'll keep it actually kind of close against Ohio State, maybe within 2 scores, but I do think they're going to end up going down probably by 10, 14 points, and it'll be not maybe a little bit of a reality check, but I think most observers probably would say they understand this Indiana team has played a remarkably easier schedule than compared to most teams in the Big Ten.
So, Indiana team has been very, very good this year. Despite this, they need this Ohio State game, I would agree. And I don't think they need to win it, but they need to show that, hey, we can compete with a top team, because we just haven't really had really many quality wins. I mean, Michigan, I'd say a decent win. Right? Beat Washington.
UCLA is getting better and better.
UCLA is getting better. I mean, the fact that they didn't just beat Nebraska, but they beat Nebraska, that. Those are quality wins. But this is a different beast, right? This will end up being the only ranked team they play this season, so they don't need to win, but they need to show that they can stick in the game with Ohio State. I think if they get blown out, I think that could jeopardize. I mean, they'll be one loss, though. It's tough to get them out. And a team that's been bad, Florida State, and it's going to segue us to. Unfortunately, don't have time to talk about them, but if you want to talk about them in our draft day, you can, because our draft day, I was inspired by my Bears today. I was watching Viewing on the Allison Lounge couch. And I said, man, this is a great idea for SportsVoice. So we're going to draft terrible teams. So imagine losing with the objective. Imagine trying to lose, which I'm starting to begin. Matt Eberflus is what we're supposed to be doing. What teams would be perennial superpowers? What teams would be the New England Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs, the New York Yankees? Right? Who would be the best teams if it was losing? We will do. Everyone gets 3 picks. Try and keep it relatively brief. And we'll start with Perri. Get the senior privilege. We'll go down, I guess, in order and age order. So
We've just on the top of hometown teams all day. I have to go with the Bengals in my painful childhood. The Bengals have not won a Super Bowl. 2021 run was magical. The last 3 seasons in a row started at 0-3, despite what everyone thinks is a great roster offensively, and excluding linemen. But I faced enough bullying in my childhood because I was just so connected to the Bengals piece. I wore it every day and I got clowned. And I would say that definitely puts them in the category of perennial losers.
I'm fair to the flag on this one. Can I take the Cleveland Spiders?
So the Cleveland Spiders being the baseball team.
Yes, being a team that was so bad that they got demoted to being a minor league team.
Tell just give us the lore.
All right, they were the lowest winning percentage of any team in Major League Baseball history. I believe it was 1899. They traded away Cy Young. Their owner was trading away all their good players to tank, and they were 20 and 134. 1899. They were so bad they got demoted to being a minor league team, and they never saw the light of day again.
That's great. I love it.
Well, I don't think I can get any older than that for my teams, unfortunately, but I will start mine with the Cleveland Browns. I think that's kind of obvious. I remember reading a poem in, like, Sports Illustrated several years ago talking about all their quarterbacks ending in, like, but how about this guy, Baker Mayfield? And since then, like, the thing still continued. Like, they still keep cycling through quarterbacks, and now, obviously, with the Deshaun Watson injury, now it's Jameis Winston, whatever's going to happen next. I mean, it's just always perpetual torture for Browns fans, I think, for really just such a long time. And are we doing Snake or are we doing a linear?
Yes, well, we were doing Snake.
Snake? Okay, well, in that case, I'll go with the Mariners. I think if you have to pick a baseball team, that they're easily the worst. Never won a World Series, and I think they're just kind of like a tier below any other baseball team I could pick in terms of how miserable their franchise's existence has been.
Yeah, I did a story last year on people who stay loyal to miserable sports teams, and I got a Mariners fan in there. I'll take UEFA San Marino.
These polls are unbelievable.
They are the worst out of any national team for soccer.
Didn't they win their first game recently?
Yeah, they've been
okay,
in
I don't know
existence-
anything about soccer.
They've been in existence since 2004.
What is this?
And they've had national competition. They've had games every year. They had their first win of all time in September of this year. That means they went 20 years, my entire lifetime, without winning a single
And what
game
league
until
is this?
It's UEFA. So it's like the national teams that play against each other.
San Marino
Great.
is a country, technically.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
very
It's
tiny.
landlocked
It's their
in the-
national team is what he's talking about.
Okay, I see. Okay.
I have
Yeah,
fun polls.
wow. Cool.
I'm gonna go with another local one, and let me go with the Northwestern baseball team. Let me hit you with this. The last time Northwestern baseball had a winning record was in the year 2000. The last time Northwestern went 500 was in the year 2003. Last year they won 4 conference wins, and that was double what they had the year before. This team is actually allergic to winning. They have been to the national tournament one time in the 1950s. You can't get any better at losing than that.
Perri, I think you gotta go again.
Right, I forgot. Oh my gosh, hit the snake.
The pressure is on.
The pressure is on, and keeping it local, the White Sox. The White Sox, they've had their moments occasionally, but they've just had such low moments too. I mean, speaking of the losingest season in MLB history this year,
In long history.
that's gotta count for something. Having the losingest season, they are losers. Their owners are losers. Shout out the Reinsdorfs. The Bulls might agree with that at the moment, and yeah, no more needs to be said.
Okay, I feel like Gabe just sort of needs an intro. Gabe is about to go. We are not prepared for the team that he's going to pick.
I think I'm going to make it a little easier. I was going to take the 2024 Australian Olympic breakdancing team, but I don't think that counts as a team because they competed separately and had the chance to medal separately.
Oh my God.
So instead, I'm just going to take the Sacramento Kings. I don't think it really needs much explanation.
Australian
I'm just gonna
breakdancing
take
to Sacramento Kings is
Sacramento Kings.
unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I actually had another one in mind that isn't a team. It's Morris Flitcroft. I don't know if you all have ever seen The Phantom at the Open. It's such a good movie,
Is this golf?
first of all, but he's a golfer.
I don't know anything
who
about golf.
somehow, pretended he was a pro and got into the Open Championship, and he was just like a random guy, and he shot 121 in his qualifying round, and so they got him in huge trouble afterwards. It's a hilarious movie. He's referred to as the world's worst golfer of all time. So I would have chosen him. Instead, I think I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions because I think you have 2 teams in football, although obviously they've had success this season. You've had 2 teams that have just been so horrendous for so long. So I'm going to wrap up both of them. I think I'll go with the Mariners. That's the winning squad in terms of losing.
How sad does it have to be as the Detroit Lions to get compared to a man who isn't even a pro golfer? We tried pro golf one.
I could have taken Rosie Ruiz with that logic, who accidentally won a marathon, but
I think we're gonna have to run this pick'em back at some point because this has been more fun pick'ems. But the problem is, I don't know. We have 3 really good teams in terms of really bad teams. Claire, I don't know if we have any thoughts here.
Yeah, I think I would have to go with Gabe's team because
the creativity is off the charts.
It's not just creativity, but it's like teams that are so historically bad that I literally hadn't even heard of them before. Like there's some teams that are really, really bad, like the White Sox, where it's like they're so bad and they're bad enough that it's a whole meme of how bad they are. And then there are other teams that are so bad that I literally have never heard of them because of how bad they are, because they stopped existing because they were so bad.
Yeah.
And so
I think when we talk about bad, I don't know if you can get it badder than Gabe's team.
Than the Cleveland Spiders. I had not heard of the Cleveland Spiders before, and so... Or UEFA San Marino.
Well, Gabe, on a bad note, will win Sports Voice today. An electric episode, really fun having, of course, 3 different grades represented here. You guys were all incredible. Thank you to everyone listening at home, and we will be back next week, November 17th, 8 o'clock p.m. as always. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you later.
He gave us a thumbs up.
Did he?
I believe so.
All right, good stuff.
Yeah,
That was
this is off
fun.
here.
Oh my god, I love this show. I almost went with Chicago State men's basketball
no.
because that really, I think, would have been a winner.
I've known about the Cleveland Spiders for a very long time.
That's a good trivia.
It's because I'm a big baseball nerd. Sammy, I thought you would have known about the Cleveland Spiders.
I did know about the Cleveland.
Yeah, it's where Cy Young used to be.